while you were at Casper, you met a lot of interesting people.
Mm-hmm.
And some of which are, is it one or two partners?
Two. Yeah. My co-founders today were former co-workers at Casper and also part of the founding team.
And so how did that, you guys all love dogs and you guys socialized together and you had this wild idea? Or tell me a little bit more about how this kind of even, like the genesis of this.
Yeah, so we were first coworkers and then just eventually, as you can imagine, became really great friends. So we worked together pretty intimately cross-functionally, especially while we were still a really small team. And Michael, one of my co-founders, was the only person I would leave my dog Blitz with when I traveled.
Okay.
Like it was a very short list. Yeah, and sometimes my mom would drive in from Pittsburgh and stay in my place in Dumbo, Brooklyn, and watch my dog. And if she was not available to make that trip or stay for a week, then Michael was the designated dog babysitter.
Sure.
And so we were all pretty dog obsessed. Casper had moved around in terms of offices, but was generally dog friendly. And so I'd bring my pups in and everyone was just kind of like, you know, ultimately really inspired to be entrepreneurs, but also disrupt another industry that felt outdated and antiquated. And, you know, I think that buying dog food can be like such a monotonous task where you try to be thoughtful, but ultimately there's like a million other things to be concerned with. And if you've got children, like there's definitely a level of priority, right? And so I had definitely my own drama with my dog and all of his health issues and his picky palate and, you know, feeding him something that he enjoyed but was also good for him.
And what's your dog's name?
His name's Blitz.
Blitz, okay.
Yeah. And then I've got another dog and a cat. But he has been, he's just been like my homie and my best friend for the past decade. Yep. So I adopted him when he moved to San Francisco. He was like, I think I moved to San Francisco in what would have been like the summer of 2010. And then I adopted him about 6 months later because we had a dog friendly office at ModCloth. And I just wanted like a companion.
Sure.
And I was meeting a lot of really new people, but it was like he was such a great conversation starter because one, he looks like the most bizarre kind of like stunted in growth Dalmatian, but he's not.
Really?
He's just like this mystery mutt of like a bunch of different breeds. Okay. But he became like really like a family to me. And I felt very responsible for taking care of him. And he just had a host of health issues. And so when we moved to New York, and those complications got more serious, our food journey together was just a tough one. And I was like, you know, you think about the category, and of course everything's consolidated at the top because it's owned by big CPG, but there's so many options, which creates like a lot of noise and a lot of congestion. And when you go through trying like 10 and then 15 and then 20 options and nothing works for your animal, it's confusing and it's really frustrating.
Sure.
And I think we hit a point where he had a pretty severe back injury. He went through surgery and then had this kind of corresponding rehabilitation that was really dependent on a clean diet because his nerves were regenerating in the back half of his body. And so he just couldn't put on weight or else that would be a huge obstacle on him recovering and regaining ultimately his mobility. And so I was cooking for him. I was ordering fresh food. I was trying to mix that with some type of dry food because if I fed him wet or fresh, it was not great stool quality. And so it was just like nothing presented itself as an easy solution for us. And Michael and Samir, my co-founders, were kind of along for the ride because it was such a traumatic experience for Blitz to go through this kind of life-altering event that left him partially paralyzed in his back legs. And they saw how it affected me, and they were incredibly supportive through that journey. And then also when we came together and we were kind of kicking the tires on a business model, like this just felt so right in terms of introducing a new brand that was not only compelling and easy and convenient for the dog parent, but then also just better for the dog in terms of superior quality and as measured through digestibility, which is like the animal's ability to retain essential nutrients, measured through stool quality. So if you're picking up your dog's poop every day, like you can tell if it's good or if it's bad or if it's easy or if it's hard. And so in that sense, we were just kind of like so hungry for a brand that resonated with us as consumers and was just generally better for our dogs.
Yeah, it's interesting how most businesses start with a need, and it seems like that's the case.